Bom, pessoal, vamos dar continuidade então. Estamos bastante, né, atrasados já. Só na conclusão dessa última palestra, né, quem ainda tiver dúvidas, né, eu vi que ainda tinham algumas dúvidas pendentes, por favor, encaminhem essas dúvidas nos formulários para que possam ser devidamente respondidas. As pessoas que ministraram agora aqui essa apresentação estão à disposição também para ter uma conversa no evento. Bom, a próxima sessão, nós vamos ter a presença de um representante internacional, é o Peter Senge, de TERENA. O tema dessa apresentação é o TERENA Trusted Cloud Drive Pilot. Essa sessão ela vem a explorar possíveis cenários para a implantação de um serviço de armazenamento confiável para redes de educação e pesquisa nacionais, as NRENs. Esse é o objetivo do projeto piloto em andamento em TERENA, sendo construído sobre uma plataforma de software federado que oferece a capacidade de facilmente se conectar a diferentes backends de armazenamento, tanto de armazenamento em nuvem, privada e pública, armazenando os dados dos usuários de forma segura e privada na nuvem, graças à separação de dados de armazenamento e metadados, bem como a funcionalidade incorporada de criptografia. Essa apresentação será ministrada em inglês, então aqueles que necessitarem, por favor, peguem os headsets no lobby. E será realizada pelo responsável direto do desenvolvimento do projeto em TERENA, Trusted Cloud Drive Pilot, também envolvido em diversas ações dos task forces e projetos técnicos de TERENA, Peter Senge.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction and also for the invitation to this forum. Talk to your community, and I'm really. So I've been invited by RMP to talk about cloud in Europe and what the European NRENs, the national, does in the area of cloud computing, and also talk about a little cloud service pilot that was initiated by TERENA. Show you a little demonstration. Everything will be ready, and show that little pilot service to you and how does that work. So basically, the agenda of my talk, I can talk about TERENA a little bit, and then the cloud issues in Europe, but the higher education institutes and the NRENs are. And as I said, I'm going to show you. So as you may know, TERENA is the European Association of National Research. What TERENA does in the area of clouds. The TERENA, where we could discuss about as you may know, we have task forces. Management of service portfolios, TFMSP, and this is the task force mainly for the NREN manager, where they talk about NREN offerings in the area of cloud and cloud. We have a technical task force on the area of data. And as you obviously, storage is one of the services that nowadays people apply for their storage service in the cloud. So we consider cloud as about data storage, and obviously touching the and we are also participating in the GEAN project. GEAN is a big European project. That project, and that project delivers a foresight study, which study we identified 4 or 5 different cloud obviously is one of those topics. What is our strategy regarding the clouds? Basically, here you can see 4 strategic points. One is about money. So actually, provide the support and coordination for NRENs, for all members, to submit successful proposals to the there is the European Commission, which we call that the European Commission will spend to enhance the broadband access and spend that money on research networking. Part of this, and we the second thing is a short-term, tangible, pragmatic. We were asked to develop something, little pilot activity, where NRENs can gain experience and experiment with cloud. The third point is, I already mentioned the Aspire study. So this is a study under the GEAN-free project, and the whole project is very closely monitored. We do hope that we can actions and the way what the European Commission will. Important to tell them how we see the world, where we are going, and our members to successfully. And the last thing, obviously, to talk to our members. So what they need recommendations, best practices, documents, descriptions, basically a collective knowledge. This is basically the strategy of So what is in the cloud for the higher education institutes and universities? We have heard about these things a lot, I guess, although I was not. So I'd like to differentiate between the application service. Talk about application services, for example. That's at least kind of services to clouds. Even I think it was in to tell about the story when one of the Google told them it's going to be cheap, easy, and it was not fast because they spent more than 8 hours to do that implementation. There were some issues if they wanted to rename an account at Google. That was impossible. If the admin accidentally deleted a Google account, it was impossible to restore. They wanted to recreate that account. That took 5 working days for Google to do that. Google wanted to have full access to the user's database. The requirement was that to have a first name and a family name to all the people, common, especially in the Asian. Yes, there were some restrictions, but I do hope that improved. Nowadays, it looks quite straightforward to try and outsource those kind of services to commercials outside of the university. Concerns the infrastructure services, that's more tricky and more risky. I think you heard about all the concerns that. My comment here: what would be the role of the NREN to help their universities to tackle with all those issues? If you take a look at the application services, obviously the NREN is in a very good position to aggregate the demands at the national level. So, and actually they can have a wider, and then via access federations, they can send that contract to all the users. That has some cost benefits, obviously. If you take a look at the infrastructure-related services, the NREN, the National Research and Education Network, and the key word here is the trust. So why universities do not outsource the infrastructure service, but they do trust the NREN. Most of the cases, university managers are sitting in the board. So they do trust the NREN. They can outsource infrastructure services to their NREN, and then comes the question what the NREN should do. So still in the higher education institute area, if you look at the trends, and we talk about NRENs, and they tell this to us, to TERENA, actually many research and educations are already using commercial clouds. So when I talk to even to PhD students, and they need some computational resource to do, gave the credit card details to Amazon and whatever, and they don't have to wait and apply for the permission. That once they have their application, very easy to commercialize. Once you have that running in a cloud, which is flexible, that's there, build a business immediately on top of that one. Little hiccup here is that all that money that they spend an awful lot of money, public money, to help the universities and to help the NRENs, and they build all those services. 30%, probably more than 30% of university staff and people using commercial. That's not ideal, for sure. We have to solve. One of the solutions could be is There are very good examples to this in Europe. I'm going to talk about these examples a bit. But one of the examples, for example, the Dutch NREN SurfNet, where they basically use the university credentials and the Access Federation to let them access to the commercial cloud. So basically, SurfNet has contract with Google Labs and also with Microsoft, and then they make it available via to almost all of their members, all the universities in the Netherlands, which is a kind of integration of. There is another thing which was an initiative of the TF Storage Task Force, and our idea was that NRENs partners in the commercial world who can provide us the necessary resources. What we envisioned is that the role, the NRENs basically can play the role of cloud carriers. So basically they can connect the users, they use public cloud and integrate the campus. We proposed this to the European Commission for funding, and although it was a very small scale and a very small project proposal, and I'm going to tell you another example which is way bigger. Partnership of the European Commission and do something together. Still, I think most of the universities are struggling between build something on their own or just buy it. And you what we found out is that there are some professions where, especially some studies, where they don't really have massive computing needs, use of resources, and that's why it is not really to use the universities' resources that they use within their lab, simply because they cannot really during these things. So in that case, it's quite straightforward to try and put computing needs, storage needs. Services to us, and actually it is happening. We take a look at the traffic that can be measured at the peering points, at the commercial peering. Actually, the traffic component that goes out from the research and education networks to directions is exponentially growing. So it means to me that the users sitting are sending traffic towards commercial directions. Probably the biggest component of that. So then the question: what's the NRENs role? What the NRENs, how the National Research and Education Networks can help their universities, and what the best strategy would be to them. Again, I'd like to differentiate between the application services and the infrastructure services, and the organizations, or even TERENA, are some very basic application services. We at TERENA use Google Calendar. We don't really think that it's something that our IT staff should provide us. Appointments, meetings. Have our own voice over IP server, and we have up for a hosted voice over IP service. Kind of vision, especially for the visionary NRENs, where they basically say NRENs should get rid of the commodity services and concentrate on new service developments and innovation for the benefit. That's a kind of trend. So just get rid of all the commodity stuff that we don't need. We should not waste efforts on that and just focus on innovation and support. So that's one way, and probably it's a bit extreme, but you will see other. Once we get to the infrastructure-related services, if it's about the network operation or storage or computing, that's again a bit tricky, bit difficult a problem. Not that easy. So there is no such a clear statements that we can say there. The point is that NRENs should interconnect their infrastructure with some public cloud providers and put some value-added services on top of available services, like storage or like computing. The interesting point here is the network operation. We had a task force which we call TFNOC. This is to get together with network operators within the NREN community. And SurfNet, the Dutch NREN, one of the visionary NRENs in Europe, actually they outsource the complete network operation to commercial. You know, the National Research and Education Networking Organization does not operate the National Research and Education. Sounds weird, isn't it? Because they think that's not their core business. So network operation, that's boring. You know, dealing with the users and failures here and there, fixing the cables. That's what the NREN should do. Let's just outsource it, the whole thing. Obviously, they own the network, they design the network, they have full control on it, but they don't waste it. Whole business. This is an extreme. This is not really common, even in Europe. I would say what is common is that the NREN networks are operated during work hours. And the weekend, probably there is 1 or 2 engineers on call. And if there is a problem, then they say, okay, it's not that a major problem, wait for Monday morning. You know, so that, is that an approach, or is that a good strategy that you can accept as one of the customers of this? As I said, infrastructure-related services are tricky, and one of the things that I would recommend to NRENs to try and hide the non-attractive features of public clouds. It sounds a bit strange, but I will explain what I mean by that. And so basically put all those value-added things and additional features on top of the current offerings that makes usable, makes attractive them to the user. Again, the same thing. Shall we build something on our own, or just buy it? There are examples to both, basically. One example is the file sender application. I don't know if you heard about it. This is a large file transfer application. It's a spin-off thingy of the TF Storage task force. And what we did in TF Storage, we looked at all the commercial offerings. You know, if you want to send a large file to someone, you don't want to email it because it's huge. Just upload it to a server and send a notification. And then the other guy at the other end can get the notification and download the file from the server. So basically, there are commercial applications like that, T-Mobile, whatever services. We took a look at them, and we found them, they are crap. They have limitations that you can send, and other limitations. So we also look at the developments among the NREN community, and we found 4 or 5 different implementations of the NRENs. And again, so we thought, why don't we develop something from scratch? Service needs and do that, implement. That's what happened. Some NRENs from TF Storage got together. gave the money, gave the necessary human efforts, and coded the file sender thingy, which is fully open source. So you can download, you can install it within your infrastructure, and there are no limitations. Most of the attract. This is something which was built in scratch as a collaborative development effort. So in other cases, the best approach is to buy. And there is another service example which is in the security area. That's the TERENA certificate service. Maybe you heard about that. So basically, we provide server certificates to the universities. And we have basically, TERENA has a contract with Komodo to the root certificate. And then there is the mechanism and the policy on top where basically all the members who signed up for this service can just issue server certificates for a flat fee. So basically you can issue as many server certificates, not just server certificates, personal grid certificates. There are 5 different certificates. But the thing is that for a flat fee, you can issue as many certificates as you want, and it's trusted. It's built into all browsers, so you don't have to manually add it to browsers, stuff like that. And this is an example where we decided to buy, so we joined. We did a joint procurement, so that procurement was run by TERENA. So we contracted with Komodo, who provide us the root certificate, and then just implemented the mechanism to distribute that. And if you take a look at the pyramid, maybe you could see that. So the idea where the NREN, the National Research Network, aggregate the demand of their universities at the country level can be rise up to one level. Example in this example, where basically we do this aggregation of demands pan-European level. And I think colleague Brooke yesterday started a discussion with first non-European member. If we talk about infrastructure services, yeah, there are some keywords that you should be familiar with, at least. The virtualization of resources, obviously, that's the technology part that you have to deal with. The federation, the middleware layer, the federation access, that's an important part, single sign-on. And the integration of services, the combination of services where you can basically go for a commercial service or in-house service that gives you the best match or the best mix of and obviously, if you talk about infrastructure cards, there are the 3 major pillars. So it's not just storage, or it's not just compute. It's all the 3. It's networking, it's storage, it's computing. Traditionally, NRENs are good at networking, so we should not really think about it. But what you can put on top of the networks, which is the computing and the storage resources, that's the part where the NRENs should put more focus on. What are the biggest concerns for universities, or even for individuals to go to the clouds? Security is the highest column. That's the same what we have heard at the panel just before. So, and the next one probably integration. Yes, how can I integrate my own resources with the resources that I got from a cloud? Is that possible? Can I mix them? What about the vendor lock-in thingy? That could be another thing. So if I signed up for Google or signed up for Amazon, I can use that resources. But what if I need resources from another cloud provider? Can I migrate my resources from one cloud provider to another? Nowadays, it's not really possible. They are not interoperable. So they are still in the stage where they build up their user community, their business, and they don't care much about it. So these are the biggest concerns. But all of that, the task of the NREN is to provide the IT services to their customers, the academic institutions, that are either not found on the market or at least not at a reasonable price, which is an interesting thing. So, because I do think that NRENs can compete with commercials, If you take a look at the networks, that's one thing. Obviously, probably we could offer bandwidth cheaper than the commercials, and that could be a huge advantage to cloud networks as well. So basically, if we can keep the traffic, if you use cloud storage, obviously you have to send traffic in and out from the cloud. And if you take a look at the offerings of the cloud provider, a big chunk of the price is basically the connectivity price. So they charge you to get your data and give your data back. So if you rely on your NREN, and NRENs can peer with those commercials, basically they can deliver your data up to the point of the cloud, and then the cloud providers don't have to charge for the transits and stuff like that. So, and in that sense, that lowers the price, of course. So there are huge cost savings, and in that sense, we could compete with some of the them obviously, but some of the cloud offerings, and not just because of the size, but because of price components. And the examples, as I promised. So I think I have a few, 4 or 5 examples from Europe, from various NRENs, what they do in the area of clouds. One example is from Greece. JRNet is the Greek NREN. And this is a very interesting story, actually. A few years ago, the Greek government issued a recommendation, and they said, we're going to reduce the money that we gave to university IT departments. We pull back that money, and we put all that money from all the universities to the National Research and Education Network. And that network should use that money to build their own cloud. And that's what happened. And obviously, universities they were not happy. They said, I want my budget, I want my resources. I'm not really sure if I can use that kind of things. But that was a visionary government decision. So they did it. And then the economical crisis hit down. And the situation now is that simply they have no money to give to universities. They have no money at all. And still, the universities can work, can be alive, because there is this huge cloud infrastructure, which is a national cloud infrastructure owned by the National Research Education Network, and they can provide all the necessary IT infrastructure, storage, computing, networking, out from the cloud with a very limited operational cost component of the price. So the universities still can do their business, can educate people without their major budget, and that budget would have been lost anyway. So this is a kind of, I think, a success story there. But basically what they did, they built everything, the whole infrastructure. They bought the servers, they bought the storage capacity. They went to Google and they used the Google Ganati Cloud Manager. That's an open source cloud manager developed by Google. It's exactly the same cloud manager that Google uses on top of their data centers. It's fully open source. You can do that as well. A tricky part, obviously, how to access and control your resources. So that part is not open source, but the Greek guys were. So they bought their own physical hardware machines, and they figured out how to control them, and they just put that fully fledged Google Ganati cloud controller on top. And there are not just the infrastructure services, but there are some applications on top of them. They have storage. We call it the JRNet storage service, GSS, which is basically storage service, but they have a virtual machine service as well, so you can just initiate payment way. So that's what happened in Greece. Another example from the Netherlands. Surfnet is the Dutch NREN, and they said they don't want to build anything. They like to own it, but they don't want to build it. They don't want to operate it. So what they did, they developed a middleware layer, a little platform. They call it Surf Connect, and basically that glue in the middle of that circle basically glues the users and the user community with the services. That could be internal services, Surfnet services within infrastructure, and could be services that they outsource to the cloud. So basically that Surf Connect has the function to deal with the federated access, the federated users. They can create virtual teams. So all the social networking features, virtual team, virtual group creations, and the federated access components are there. And obviously they can then relay to cloud services that are out of the border of the organization or any internal services. So they said basically we don't have to do much, just a little technical to make it feasible, make it happen with this little technical development, and the rest is just contracts and just that's the SurfNet approach in that. They are quite successful with that. I mentioned that they have now contracts with Google, they have contracts with Microsoft, one single contract somewhere here with cloud providers. They have some internal services as well. So they manage the contracts to that, and then the whole user base and this whole group management thing, it comes via the SurfConnect platform. The third example, again, the opposite, to build something. This is from Hungary. It's my country. I'm from Hungary. Traditionally, the Hungarian NREN has the network, obviously, which is quite spread around the country. And what they did again, they decided to build their own resources on top of the network. So they bought the big servers, the big storage, and they used another open source things with this. Okay. Use another open source cloud manager, which is the Open Nebula platform. It's completely different than Google Ganati. So those systems are not interoperable by default, but it's again an open source cloud manager which they put on top. They develop the necessary functions. So all the orange, yellowish part of this figure is all the additional functions that they put on the open source Open Nebula cloud manager. And they now have a complete infrastructure, all the three pillars, computing, storage, network, which is on the network, which is available. And now they started to think about applications on top. So it was again a bit different approach. They had the money. They had the money from the government that they had to burn. Otherwise they lose it, you know. That's the money that you have to spend by the end of the financial year. Otherwise the money will gone and you have no chance to spend it. And the only way how they could spend it is that they put that money into the infrastructure. So they invested into the infrastructure. And now they have the chance to put all kinds of applications on top of their infrastructure and provide all kinds of storage things. And they come to TERENA, they talk to us, they talk to other NRENs, how they can do that, what are those open source applications, file sender, for instance. I already mentioned this file transfer application, that they can just easily put on top of this, and it works, and the users are happy. Another example in the area of interconnections and networking, again from the Netherlands, SurfNet, and from Iceland. There is a commercial cloud company in Iceland, which is called Green Cloud. They are green because in Iceland, the inside is hot, outside is cool, so it's ideal to do some computing there. So basically, I think they have more than 60% of green energy that they use within their data centers. At Google, I think it's less than 30%. So that is really green, but it's up there. Iceland is very far, so from Europe. But what they had a pretty good network. I think you've seen this picture outside during the demonstration as well, where basically from Amsterdam you can get to Reykjavik, which is the capital of Iceland, via two distinct routes. So basically you can go via London or via Copenhagen. So there is at least a reliable connection up there. And what they did, they put all the clouds stuff up to Iceland, and they just got access to that via the optical links from the Netherlands. And they built the whole infrastructure, they designed the whole infrastructure in a way that all the traffic is kept inside the NREN IP space, kept behind their firewalls. So basically this is their infrastructure. This is just a physical thing, it's just a location, a geographical location that the stuff is up there in Iceland. But basically from a user point of view, at the IP layer level, it's their own networks, it's the same network. There's nothing outside. And in that way, obviously, they have some tests to migrate, do some live migration of virtual machines and stuff like that, which is itself interesting. But the concept is that to try and use your network to connect your user community, your infrastructure to the cloud, then that reduces the cost, the networking cost, obviously. And if you can get to Iceland or places where the energy is cheap and green, that's good for. So, two more examples from the area of applications. One is the idea of a little startup company which is called unhosted.org. You can Google for it. And the idea was the following. If you use cloud applications in the cloud, for instance, Google Docs, you write your document in Google Doc. Basically, the web application keeps the data inside the application. So when you use Google Doc and you write your document and you save it, that is at Google Spaces somewhere in California or whatever, their data center. So basically the data, the user data is kept inside the web application. They are bundled together. You cannot do anything with it. If you use the web application, the Google Docs, your data is there. And obviously, in the US, Google is signed up with the US Patriot Act. So if the US government says that there is this suspicious company called TERENA in Europe and they write strange Word documents, can I take a look at them? And Google say, yes, of course, why not? Here they are. So, so that's a problem. And this little startup company came with the idea to try and separate the web application from the user data. So you can use the web application, all the functions of the web application, but your data, actually the important part that you're typing, is kept local or a trusted place. Separate from I think I'm losing the battery of this mic sometimes. Yeah, so basically that's the idea. Obviously you can't do that with Google because once you use the Google application, they don't want to separate your data from that. But you can do that with open source similar applications like the LibreDocs, for example. It does very similar things that the Google Doc, but in that case, you can separate at the application level the web application from your data. It's a very interesting idea. And then at the moment, SurfNet runs a little pilot with this company called unhosted.org. So if you are interested in that, you should Google it on the SurfNet web pages, and you will find more about this. And another idea, again, a kind of trust and security and separation things to separate the user data from the metadata. So once you have a storage service, for instance, you want to store your data in a public cloud, what you could do is you can encrypt the data, obviously, and then you can keep the encryption keys and all the metadata, the file names, date of creation, size, owner, stuff like that, separate. So you separate the metadata from the data, then you can export your encrypted data to the cloud, wherever, and you can keep the part that matters, where the sensitive information is. You can keep that part local or at any trusted place. This is, again, an idea of a little startup company called Freyheit.net, and we talked to these guys, and based on this idea, we implemented the TERENA Trusted Cloud Drive service that I'm going to show. Yeah, so I mentioned about that small research project that was initiated by TF Storage, the TERENA Task Force, and some commercial partners. And as I said, our idea was that to team up with commercials and do something together in the area of clouds. This is pretty much similar to that. You're going to hear about it for sure. This is called Helix Nebula, the Science Cloud. This is a non-NREN initiative. There are big science laboratories in Europe. One is CERN, probably you heard about it, with all the LHC stuff, Large Hadron Collider. There is the European Space Agency. They obviously have some interesting astronomical stuff, and the third one is the European Molecular Biology Lab. So they have some biology-related research. So those three big research group institutes team up together, and they said we're going to create our own cloud. Obviously, they cannot do that alone, so they come up with a surprising idea. We need some commercials to get some resources to do that. So they have Atos, they have Cloud Sigma, they have T-Systems. You can go to their website. There are many other commercials there, and the idea is pretty much the same. So we have the users, we have the use cases. That's what we want to do. That's our requirements in storage, in computing, in networking. You are the commercial, you invested the money, you have this business, so let's team up and do something together, do a science cloud for our community. And actually, I think at the very beginning they made a little mistake, or our NRENs, but now they are talking to us because they realize that the NRENs, the National Research Education Networks, can play, again, a significant role here. If you deal with commercials, commercial networks, all the point of presences at the networks are at commercial locations in the data centers. Most of the NRENs POPs, NREN network endpoints are at the universities, and they want to get to the universities directly. So they need the NRENs. They need the NRENs to get to the campuses, to get to the universities directly. And especially they need Géant as well. Géant is the backbone for the NRENs in Europe, because we can actually give them the necessary capacities, even 100 gigs at the backbone level. So now they talk to Géant, and Géant offered in the first round the networking services to this Helix Nebula initiative, which is going to be the science for those big sciences, which is again an interesting thing and a very much bigger initiative than what we, the NRENs, try to do with our little initiative, but the principle is the same. And as I said, the Trusted Cloud Drive pilot. So that was the second point in our strategy, to do something tangible, short-term, pragmatic thingy that NRENs can try out easily and do some experiment with clouds. And obviously, these are the issues that we wanted to solve. So the access, first of all, how can I access my data? So this is a data storage service, a cloud storage service, only storage, no computing, no network, pure data storage service in the cloud. Obviously, the question how you can access your data, what kind of devices, platforms I can use, what is the cost. So there are many free storage cloud services available, Boxnet, Dropbox, whatever you like. Obviously, there is a limitation in each of the cases, so you have to pay if you need more. So we want to get rid of that limitation. How can I share my documents? If you use one platform and you sign up for one platform, that's fine. Then probably you can share between the users, but still you are logged into that commercial solution. So we want to have full open sharing and the privacy. I don't know if you have ever read the service policy of Google Drive. I read that, and Google Drive says if you upload your document to Google Drive, you gave a worldwide license to use, host, store, reproduce, modify, create, communicate, publish, publicly perform, publicly display, and distribute your content. It's a worldwide license. So do you trust them? and actually, they said, okay, they will do that because you asked them to do that, and this is only for the purpose to operate their service and serve you, basically. But it sounds a bit strange. So we came up with this pilot, and our unique selling points are here. So we are federated. There is a federated access. All the federated users can use it. Your data is encrypted. We do a strong encryption. We separate the metadata from the storage data. So the same idea that I explained to you with this little startup. Actually, we talk to the guy. We hire the guy to implement that stuff to us. So we separate the metadata, the encryption case, all the sensitive part from the storage data, and we keep them separate. That's why we call it trusted, and obviously provided by the NRENs. It's brokered, so at the backend, we're going to have an API, and we can export your encrypted storage data, user data to any cloud that you like. And that's why it's flexible, and last but not least, the whole thing is open sourced again. So this is a community effort. Code is open source, so if you like it, you can get it, you can try it. And to make it even more easy to try it, what we did, we implemented this at TERENA. So at the moment, and this is the idea, just to explain it. So you have the metadata, the storage data, so the file names, all the important stuff, plus the storage data encrypted. And what we do, basically, we export the part which is encrypted to the public cloud, and we keep all the part that is important at a trusted place. Your local place, it could be at TERENA, whatever. What we did, as I said, we implemented this. This is just a pilot, a little small-scale pilot trial. We implemented this at TERENA offices. So we have this platform running at TERENA in Amsterdam. What you can do, you can access. It is fully federated with all the national federations. And we also connected it to the social network thingy. So if you have a Facebook account, if you have a Google account, if you have a Twitter account, you can use that account to access the service. Yeah, as I said, it is really flexible at the backend. So at the moment, we have only a local storage backend, but there is an inbuilt Amazon S3 interface. So if we want, this is just a configuration option, we can store all the encrypted storage data in Amazon Cloud, which is flexible and we keep obviously the metadata at our location. This is our little roadmap, which is not that interesting. The thing is that at the backend, we want to comply with the JCloud API, which is already a collection of different cloud APIs. So if we are compliant to that, what you have to do, and you want to connect your own storage backend, you have to just comply to JCloud as well. And it is a well-documented API. And as I said, the code is open source. It's on GitHub. Apache license version 2. It's very well documented there. We run this little pilot until March next year. It's really definite end of this pilot. And it is fully open to our community, open to our NRENs to participate, open to the universities, and basically it's open to you as well if you want to try it. There are 3 different ways if you want to be part of this. You can bring your federated users with a federated account, and you can just test the service. If you are more techy, you can try and comply with the API and attach your own backend storage, if you like. So it's still a centralized service with different backend storage. Or if you are familiar with the code, so you know the programming language, you read the documentation, you are familiar with the code, you can just take it and do it yourself. Open source. This is the actual status of the pilot. At the moment, we have 18 interested participants. 12 of them are from Europe. Those are the 12 NRENs from Europe. 2 of them are outside of Europe, the NREN of India and the NREN of Australia. And we have non-NREN participants, 4 of them. SESCA is a regional network in Catalonia, Spain. There is this EPFL, I think that's a university in Switzerland, University of Malta, and the SCRE is the data center, computing center in Croatia. So basically, we have enough interest. We already issued some accounts. So as I said, it's fully federated, but there is a whitelist. I will show you in the demo in a minute. So we have 14 beta testers at the moment, and we are collecting the initial feedback of the service. And the next step would be to build a real development community around the code. So one thing if it's open source, but at the moment there is one key lead developer of the code, the guy who initiated the whole and came up with this. What we want to do, take those interested NRENs and build a reliable development, open source development community around the code to make it. And obviously we have to understand how to use it. So we have some service scenarios, service delivery scenarios, and we want to validate them. And basically those service delivery scenarios, this is the first one, where you have a hosted service, hosted by TERENA or hosted by an NREN, and it's fully centralized. So pretty much follow the SurfNet model with the SurfConnect thingy. So there is a contract with that body, let's say TERENA, and the public storage offering, and then the contracts with all the users, and the users via the federated accounts, they just can exploit the fully centralized solution. If you want, you can use a distributed storage model. So as I said, at the back end, it's fully flexible. So even the NRENs can offer their storage capacity. You've seen the examples in Greece. They have, I don't know how many terabytes of storage. In Hungary, I think they have 5 terabytes, and they are upgrading to 10 terabytes. So if they are thinking about how to exploit those resources that they built already in a network, they can just offer it to this, and we can use it. And this is a brokered model where you take the code and you implement the code at your location. So in this case, all these little brokers are distributed at the NRENs location. But still, we can do the common procurement at the European level if you want for our NRENs. And the last one is, yeah, it's a complete mix. It's distributed in each way. Just to finish my talk, just to get back to this, and I will have still 15 minutes, I guess, to have the demo. So some service policy and legal aspects. We don't have a service policy yet. This is just a pilot. It's a very small-scale technical pilot. You can participate. You can try it. We have never talked about policy up to this point. Yeah, and I showed you the Google policy, and well, basically, if we have to create a policy, we have to copy the data, obviously, because we don't want to keep it at one place. We want to replicate the data, so we have to copy your data. We're going to modify your data because we do the encryption. So we have to. We're going to publicly display your data. So if you ask us to share your data, we're going to provide you a public URL, and you can share your data. So we're going to do all the nasty stuff that you have read in the Google policy. The key thing is that I do hope that we are trusted, and I'm talking about the NRENs, and that's where I started. So the universities must trust in your NREN, and if the NREN operate or broker this kind of service to them, there's a kind of trust relationship between them, and they have to trust, and they can keep you, I mean, the owner of the data in control, which is again important. There is another little legal aspect. There is a cloud legal project. It's run by the Queen Mary University in London, and they have a very interesting proposal. This is to the European, and they said if you have an encrypted data blob, completely anonymous, it should not be covered by the data export rules. So basically, I can even go to Google or go to Amazon, and I can store that encrypted data blob in the US. It should not be a problem, because all the important parts, the metadata and all the identifiers and encryption keys, are kept in a trusted place in Europe, or more importantly, within your organization, or within your NREN, or within TERENA. So, and this is a very interesting proposal. So if that data blob will be excluded from those rules, that means that if we want to implement this service, even at the European scale, we could be really, really flexible at the back end, and we can really relay that data to any cloud providers in the world. Yeah, I don't know if I need to conclude really my talk. So consuming the public cloud, it is important. The NREN's role is to aggregate the demand. So identity, federated identity and federated access is an important thing. If you are an expert, talk to Brooke. Brooke is our federated identity expert. Producing community clouds, business cases, it's also important for our NRENs, for our managers to understand this whole thing. Connecting to clouds, create collaboration infrastructures. I showed you the examples, also a key point. And the legal issues and the standardization and interoperability. We are not really at that stage, at least not in the commercial world yet. Even if you standardize something, there are so many standardization bodies. So, okay, it's a standard, which body, and what the other body says. So it's always a difficult thing when we somehow deal with it, and we have to keep all these developments and effort open source. If you are interested in the cloud, TERENA Cloud activities, go to that link. We have a wiki about this Trusted Cloud Drive pilot, so if you want to participate in the pilot, visit the wiki. And we're going to have 2 events soon. Both will be available online, I guess, so you can do video conferencing, web conferencing. I don't know. One is the Aspire workshop. I told you about the Aspire project on the 13th of September in Brussels, Belgium, and another one is the next coming TF Storage, TERENA TF Storage meeting, 26th, 27th September in Dubrovnik, Croatia. You can visit those links, you can register, and if the time is convenient, you can. If you have questions, contact me. I'm a project development officer at TERENA. If you have questions about Aspire, we have John Dyer. He's the business and technology strategist and also the deputy CTO at TERENA. He's my boss. And we have several mailing lists. NRENs Cloud's mailing list for all kinds of cloud discussions. Storage mailing list for TF storage, and if you are interested in data storage. And we have the Aspire mailing list for the Aspire. Go to the TERENA webpage, you can subscribe to those. At this point, I can take questions, if you have any. Otherwise, I can show the demonstration over there. Okay, so I do hope that I won't have any demo effect, the usual things that if you want to demonstrate something and it doesn't happen. So as I said, this is a cloud storage application that you can access via a web browser. All kinds of browsers are supported. As what you have to do if you have to log in. So what you're going to see here is basically the federated login thing. So if I click to log in, I'll be redirected to the federations page. So this is the page where you have to select your home organization. So for example, if I'm from TERENA, so I can just filter for TERENA. Go. So I work for the TERENA Secretariat. I click on that. So this is my home organization. At this point, I'll be redirected to my home page. So this is my design, so I can identify that. And I can simply log in with my home credentials that I use to access my network back in Amsterdam. So I logged in with my home credentials, then hopefully I'll be redirected back to the service. It's a little bit slow, but here you go. So I'm in. I use my federated identity to access the service. So I don't have to subscribe, I don't have to register, I just go there and use it. And this is a web interface. If you have ever used Dropbox, it's pretty much similar to that. So here you have the folders, and you can upload the files. There are limited, very basic functions. Basically, upload, download the file. So here you can see one file. These are the folders. If I want to create a new folder, just click here. Say test. And if I'm lucky, here you go. So I have an RMP folder. I can edit, change the name. I can delete if you want. And I can upload the file. I don't want to do that now. Probably it takes more time. But you can imagine that you can upload the file. And once the file uploaded, you can specify some tags. So you say, if there is a dog on this picture, then I can say the tag dog. And once you do the search, this search functionality here can do search on the tags. And basically, it will create you a new folder with your search criteria. So if I search for dog, it will be a new folder will be created here with dog. And if I check the folder, all the files where the owner of the file gave the tag called dog will appear there. So that's the web interface. That's a very simple web interface. What you can do is to activate the disk interface. where you basically can attach this remote storage facility to your desktop. You have a username. You have to define a separate, different password to that, and then you have the username password combination to access the web drive. I have a Windows machine. On the Windows machine, I have to use a WebDAV client. Unfortunately, we on the Windows machine, because of some restrictions, we cannot use the native Windows Explorer to do this. That's why I'm using this WebDAV client. This is open source, it's free, I just downloaded. And basically what I can do, I can attach the drive to my computer. And here you go. So that's the same. Actually, it's a bit different because I use a different account. But basically, ideally, it should be the same folder. So here you have the file, and you have all the folders that you have created. And at this point, this drive, this virtual drive, is basically attached to your desktop. You can pull over the files. You can do delete, search, stuff like that. On the Mac, I cannot show you on a Mac, but on the Mac, you don't have to use this client. On the Mac, the native virtual drive will work, so you can just attach this drive as a virtual drive. So basically, if I go to the configurations, here you can see the server name that you have to specify, your username, your federated username, and the password. And basically, that's it. And you can connect the service. Another thing that I wanted to show you is probably more important, because if you don't have your local IDP, identity provider, and you don't have a federation, you can still test and use the service. So I click the login again. I'm again at the page, and here I can select the social networks, and I can select Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So if you have a Google account and want to test it out, you can just click to Google. And it's the same procedure. You will be redirected to the Google's login page, hopefully. So yeah, if you have a Google account, you are familiar with it. So I can now log in with my Google account. That must be different than my personal account. So here you can see this is a T-Online account. So this is a commercial account. This is my private Google account. It's not a TERENA account. I'm not sure if I know the... Yeah, so once I authenticate again with Google, then I again redirect it to the service, and there is another drive. And as you can see, this one is a different one, because the previous one I created the RMP folder, and here you can't see RMP folder. Actually, there's a testing folder, so what I can do, I just delete the testing folder. And that's exactly the same as you can see here, because this is the Google one as well. So here you should see, yeah, the same testing folder and the same file. So this is the same look of my virtual drive. This is from my desktop, and this is via the browser. I still have 2 minutes. I can demonstrate this on this mobile device as well. Just So this is my mobile. This is an Android phone, but you can do pretty much the same with your iPhone as well. So this is an Android phone, and for Android I also need a little client. There are many, actually. So here you can see 2 different clients. One is this WebDAV file navigator, another one is the, I don't know, so I can show you both. So basically this is a little client. Here you can see my 2 different drives. One is the TERENA one, and another one with the Google one. So I just showed you the Google one before. So if I click on the Google one, now I'm there. And this is, again, the same look. So we have the testing folder, we have the file, exactly the same that I showed you at the computer. And here, again, what you can do, you can delete one. You can access your files under this folder. This folder is empty at the moment. Let's try if I can delete that folder. So again, this is the same. And if you have an iPhone, I think you need a client for your iPhone as well. But you can just search for it on the iStore, and then so you could do pretty much the same. So you make a photo, upload it to your storage drive, and you can access it via the web browser, via client, or from your Mac. You can access it as a native virtual drive attached to your computer. So basically that's it that I wanted to show you. And if you want to test it, as I said, it's available. We have this open test period or phase until March next year. So if you go to the web page or send me an email, I will whitelist your account, because as I said, everything is federated. So all the users can use it. 4 million people at least, or I don't know how many federated accounts we have at the moment. So just to restrict the usage, we have a whitelist basically, where I have to put your account ID on the whitelist if you want to use it. So basically, if you send me an email, I will whitelist your account, if you have a Google account, and then you can access the service and you can test it. Very much for your attention.
Perguntas, pessoal? Estamos também com o tempo estourado, mas...
Ask you in English. I suppose that you have responsibilities about forbidden content, for instance, pornography.
I'm afraid this is the issue for the future. So as I said, this one is just a pilot. So we did that as a small first step to gain some experience with this kind of services, mostly in a technical field. All the legal aspects, all the policy aspects, all the other things that we should tackle, that's a question. That's for the future. There is a company called GISC Legal. It's in the UK. We have very good relations to that. They usually come to TF Storage meeting. They offered the consultation of this cloud legal project as well. They are based in London, and they think about European law, they think about UK law, and they think about such kind of things. What should be written in the policy if you want to, offer this kind of services on a large scale to your users, to your universities, if you are an NREN. So it's still not clear yet. So if you upload something which should not be there, that's a problem. Please don't do that. But as I said, this is not a production service yet. This is just a pilot, and we need to do a lot of things and thinking if we really want to have a production service out of this. On the other hand, if basically this is just a broker, a tiny layer on top of all the other commercial cloud offerings. At the moment, it's not the case because we have our own local file server. But once, if you ship your data or export your data to the Amazon cloud, obviously we have to take a look at their policy, and we have to comply with their policy. In the way, the Amazon S3 policy somehow will be hierarchy up to the end user, so we have to deal with that. Is that an answer to your question? Thank you.
Eu vou encerrar as perguntas. É só fazer um aviso para vocês. A próxima sessão vai ser realizada na sala Ouro Preto, aqui em frente.